episode of Virtual Coffee. My name is Alexa Collier, and on this podcast, I sit down and have virtual coffee with accomplished and innovative early career professionals and small business owners. So, with me today is Alicia Hindman. She is the founder and owner of Pups for Pups Confections, and Pups for Pups sells homemade baked goods, specifically Buckeyes, and each month they donate a portion of the proceeds to a dog shelter or rescue organization. Besides running Pups for Pups, Alicia is a high school educator in Ohio, and on this episode, Alicia shares her perspectives and advice on running and launching a small business while also pursuing your full-time career. She really dives into her mission and why her business is so important to her and why she holds her business so true to her heart. So definitely a great story that she shares here. Before we get into Alicia's story, I'd love if you could rate and review Virtual Coffee on the Apple Podcasts app. You can also find us wherever you listen to your podcast, and we're on social media on Facebook and Instagram. It's at Virtual Coffee Podcast. Another quick shout out, I do highly recommend checking out the What's Your Story podcast with Sally Williamson. Now, this podcast brings together storytelling and business through the angle of how senior leaders leverage storytelling in business to motivate their employees. Highly recommend checking out this podcast. They do about a season a year, so about 10 to 12 episodes in each season. Check out What's Your Story podcast. Now, with that, let's dive back into Virtual Coffee and hear Alicia's story. Welcome, Alicia. Thank you so much for chatting with me this morning.
Hey, Alexa. Thanks for having me for Virtual Coffee. I am on my front porch with coffee, ready to go.
I actually always have my tea when recording this. Perhaps I should change it to virtual tea, but that doesn't have the same ring to it.
Right. No, it doesn't.
Cool. So first, I'd really love if you could tell us everything about Pups for Pups. Can you walk us through the journey from when you first had the idea and how that idea came to be, kind of to where you're at now with the business?
Sure. So I am located in Columbus, Ohio, for people who aren't local. And I'm an educator. I'm a high school counselor. And once COVID hit, school was canceled on March 13th. And then we were quarantined. We had some stay put orders from the governor on, I think those went into effect March 15th. And so we had to stay home and quarantine. And I was seeing a lot of my friends in the service industry lose their jobs, unfortunately, because all the restaurants and bars closed on March 15th. And being in education, I was feeling really grateful that I had a job. I was getting paid every 2 weeks. I had all my benefits and my health insurance and everything. And I've been making Buckeyes forever. Every party I go to, I take Buckeyes. My husband works in the music industry, so he's on the road a lot. So when the band is in town, I take like 300 Buckeyes for them. It's always just been my thing. I've been like the Buckeye lady. And so I was thinking of a way that I could help my friends. And so I started to sell my Buckeyes, I think the second week of our quarantine, and I was able to donate over $1,000 to, I want to say like 12 to 15 of my close service industry friends.
Wow.
I actually got them some grocery gift cards. And after that was over, I was like, dang, people really, really are enjoying buying my Buckeyes, and people really enjoy when their money's going to a good cause. So on top of that, in September of 2019, my brother passed away. And so I was stricken with this grief and I needed some sort of creative outlet. And so I was looking for something more after that quarantine project. I just wanted more. I wanted to do more and I wanted to honor him in some way. And so when he passed away, he had 2 dogs. And so my parents inherited his dogs and he loved dogs. He always ate my Buckeyes like we call him a garbage disposal because he would just eat literally everything. And he loved my Buckeyes. So I thought of Bucks for Pups in his honor because he loved the Buckeyes. He loved the Ohio State Buckeyes and he loved dogs. So I just married them all together. And in his honor, I came up with Bucks for Pups. And here we are 3.5 months later.
Such an awesome mission or spark of a business, right? And I love how it started with trying to help your friends in the service industry. I didn't know that. I thought it had started to honor your brother, but it had started before that. And then found a way to, once that crisis of COVID and your friends being out on their luck was somewhat over, right? I know it's still I'm sure
Sure.
people are still affected, but finding a way to evolve your mission and helping others, right?
Yeah,
And being able to
that
honor your brother, which again, I'm very sorry to hear of his passing,
thanks.
but just such a cool way to keep on his memory.
It is. I just think that he would get a kick out of it. Like
Yeah.
he just would love it. Like I just know what he would say. You know, I know exactly like his mannerisms, like what he would do if he's seeing me sit there make 100 Buckeyes. I mean, he'd eat half of them, but
Right.
I'd have to ban him from the room.
Oh,
But
that's funny.
yeah, that's exactly how it started. And I don't often use the COVID. I call it my pandemic project.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm telling people how it started, I refer to it as pandemic project. So no, I don't really make that known. I do make my brother the mission. But honestly, yeah, it started with that, and I've grown to be in a little grocery store here in Columbus, a little pub down the street that my husband and I actually met in. They have it as their dessert. We have 13 partners, Columbus rescues and shelters, that when you go onto the website and you actually order from us, before your confirmation page, a pop up comes up and it gives you the option to choose which of the 13 partners you would like your 20% to be donated to. So there's a lot of customer buy in, which I think is a lot of, it's just really important to me to give customers the opportunity to choose what organization you want your percentage to go to.
Yeah, I really like that because oftentimes I think businesses, both large and small, they say, okay, for this month, we're donating to this specific organization or this specific cause. And you're centering it around dog shelters, right? And you're supporting animals, but you can pick the specific organization. I think that's a very unique offering.
Yeah. So for the first 3 months of my business, I did a rescue of the month. So in May, I did the Franklin County Dog Shelter.
Okay.
In June, I did Calls for Canines, which is a small rescue here in Columbus. And then in July, I did Rescued Ohio, which is another rescue. And I was seeing that once the month of like the Franklin County donation was over, people weren't ordering from me anymore. Because I
Hmm.
think people are dedicated to their specific rescue or shelter where their dog came
Right.
from, which is
Right.
fine and it's
Hmm.
great. But I wanted to open up the floodgates for people to order at any time and for any Franklin County dog shelter. So then that's when this was born. And it took some innovative ideas with like the website company I'm working with. I had to tell them what I wanted, and then they had to like come up with this way to make it a thing. They're like, wait,
Yeah.
I've never been asked this question before. I don't know how to program this into our system, but we made it
Wow.
work. And so I'm pretty
Yeah.
excited about that. So now I've had, everyone can order Buckeyes at any time. And what's kind of unique about my business here in Columbus is I don't know if people listening aren't aware of what a Buckeye is, but the Ohio State tree is a Buckeye tree,
Hmm.
and they grow these little nuts that have a spiky outer shell, and they're actually completely poisonous to dogs,
Oh, wow.
humans, unless, well, to humans, unless you cook them. But anyway, so I call it the confection of Ohio. Like the quintessential taste of Ohio is a Buckeye. It's a confection that's a sugar and peanut butter ball dipped in chocolate, and it looks exactly like the poisonous nut from the state tree. And here in Columbus, there's really only a few manufacturers. So there's Anthony Thomas, which is all over the United States, I think,
Hmm.
and then a couple other small companies, and that's it. And none of them have a mission like I do. So I came up
Right.
with this idea. I'm like, why aren't there more manufacturers of this quintessential taste of Columbus? And so here I am. And
Mhm.
hopefully, I will someday be named as, when you're talking about Buckeyes, you think of Bucks for Pups.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I love how you found a need for Buckeyes in the market, right? But are also able to
Yeah.
combine this with such a passionate mission and such a passionate cause. I think
Thank
that's
you.
the perfect combo
I
for
think so
especially,
too.
yeah, especially for a small business. And I was going to ask you to describe Buckeyes because I've never heard of them before coming across your business. And my husband's from Ohio, actually. He's from Marietta, Ohio, if you're
Okay.
familiar with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what those are." Like, yeah.
I like to
So,
describe them as like a Reese cup,
mm,
but more peanut butter and just better.
yeah, yeah, and like a ball form, right? It's
Yes, in a ball
round. Yeah.
form. Yeah. So it takes about, depending on what size of bite you want to take.
Yeah.
Mine are like jumbo. Mine are like almost 2 inches in diameter. And so,
That's what Nathan said. He's like, "Wow, hers are huge."
yeah. So it takes me a couple bites. I mean, there are times
Okay.
where I'll take a bite and then honestly, I'll like leave it in the fridge for the next night. Because I'm like, I
Yeah,
just need a
yeah.
little bite.
Right, right. That's awesome. So I know you're based out of Columbus. Do you only sell in the Columbus area? Just curious, where you ship for those listening to this episode.
Yeah. So when I started in May, I was shipping, but then it honestly got too hot. And
Yeah.
so they were arriving a bit melted to other states. And so on my website that I launched on August 1st, I did mention that I do ship, but I prefer to only ship September to May when the weather's a little cooler. They do arrive adequately if you don't mind like the aesthetic of it. Like
Mhm.
they arrive a little mangled because it's just me out of my home. I don't have like a shipping company doing properly packaging it. I do it the best I can. And then you just throw them in your fridge and they taste the exact same as if you were to eat them immediately after I made them. So I do ship, but I try not to during the hot months.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's smart. And do you ship all throughout United States?
I do, yeah. So
Okay.
when I was practicing with shipping, I have a couple friends in Massachusetts and California and Chicago and Florida. And so I shipped them all over the US and they would send me little videos of the
Oh,
unpackaging.
cool. User
Yeah, it was
testing.
fun to see how they turned
Yeah.
out and they turned out fine. They don't look the same as if you were to buy them from me here, but
Right.
again, they taste the exact same. So maybe someday once I grow, I can get a proper shipping company to like really package them for me.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so if you don't mind the aesthetic of like a little bit of melted chocolate, go ahead and go to my website and order.
Perfect. Perfect. And do you also sell, are you mainly selling at fairs, like locally?
No, so I kind of want to avoid farmers
Okay.
markets. Being a full-time school counselor, I really just don't have time.
Yeah.
So I've actually made my front porch a little storefront. So when you order on my website, I have the option of free porch pickup. And my neighborhood's called Clintonville in Columbus. And so I have a little mini fridge on my front porch. We have a screened in front porch. It's a
Hmm.
very charming neighborhood. Most of the houses have front porches. It's a quirky little neighborhood. And so I have a little mini fridge on my front porch. So when you order from me, you then get a confirmation email that gives you my address, and then you just pop in, and it's self serve, completely contactless. In addition to that, I am recently selling wholesale to a grocery store downtown called the Hills Market. So that's been exciting. So we're available here, the Hills, and then I also deliver within a 10-mile radius of my house.
Okay. Excellent. I love that front porch idea. What a
Yeah, it's
cute
so
way. And
fun.
I would totally do that, right? Like just drive down and pick it up. It's super easy. I love that idea.
Thank you. I luckily my husband's been super supportive of it and he doesn't mind and it's worked out really well cuz people just really like that contactless
Hmm.
aspect of
Exactly.
it where they can just pop in at their own convenience. I ask that they do pick it up during business hours cuz we
Hmm.
like to hang out here at night, but it doesn't matter. Like it's completely at your convenience.
Right. No, that's excellent. So I know you mentioned, you're a school counselor, and I'm curious if you've had any experience with running a business prior to founding Bucks for Pups, and just interested in knowing, what advice you might have for those who have an idea and want to kick something off. Like, what are some of the bigger lessons you've learned along this journey?
So I really don't have any background starting a business.
Mhm.
I got my undergraduate degree in psychology and then my master's degree in education to be a school counselor. So I really don't know what I'm doing. Now my dad's an entrepreneur. He has multiple trademarks and some patents and such. So growing up, I was around it. I didn't really pay much attention to it, but I do think that my entrepreneurial spirit is from my dad for sure. So my advice for small business owners is if you have an idea, just go for it. Starting the actual business, in my experience, wasn't really that hard. To register as an LLC, it's just online. I heard back 24 hours later. Just to do it, I think the biggest leap is just to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't really sleep on it very long. I had this idea, and I think when I shared it with my friends and family, well, not really my friends, just I guess my husband, he was like, sure, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea, I guess. And he's way more of a cautious person than I am. I'm slightly an impulsive person, and so I always have these ideas. I have a very creative mind that I constantly have innovative ideas on how to make things better, work more efficiently. So him hearing my ideas isn't really abnormal. So
Right.
he was probably just like, oh, this is just another idea Alicia has. But as it grew and as I started to really make money, I think that's when people come around, is when they see that it's successful and they see that people are enjoying this business model and they're enjoying the mission. And so I think the biggest leap was just kind of getting over the doubts that people have, when in my heart, I know it's a good idea. I know there's a market for it, or at least I feel as if I know in my heart. And then I think there's a lot of convincing that goes on. I think I'm past the convincing part. I kind of had to convince my husband and friends that, like, no, this is a good idea and there's a market for it. You should just watch me. Watch me.
Yeah.
And here we are. Like, for example, when I got into the grocery store, I think that was a big determining factor for people to really think, oh, she's really doing this. That's really cool.
This is legit.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
legit. I think I've had even a couple people actually use that term. Like when I posted about it on social media, like, wow, this is legit. You're in a grocery store.
Yeah.
I'm like, I told you.
Right, right. I love your mindset around launching a small business of just do it, right? You had this idea, you knew it was an awesome idea, you felt passionate about it, so go for it. And I think you bring up a great point of having that time period of getting over the doubts. I really like that you brought that up. I haven't heard that so far throughout these interviews. I think that's just a great point of when you first have this idea, it might seem crazy to the majority of people you talk to, but you just need to try it out, right? And don't let them knock you so far down. Some of their doubts maybe are valid and might help you further build out the idea or think of something different, but don't let them sway you completely away from your idea and from your passion, and try it
Oh,
out, right?
absolutely.
Just try to prove it out. And if it doesn't work, that's a chance that it might not work out, but at least you tried.
For sure. And honestly, I mean, I had to have a conversation with my husband about, like, I need you to be more supportive. And I think that small business owners probably experience this, but it's something that may not be talked about because it can be a bit perhaps embarrassing, or either some shame or guilt behind it. But there was a point in time where he's being so cautious, like, I don't know about this. And I had to be
Right.
like, listen, it's a good idea. I need you to be supportive, and you can be cautious and guide me, but I also need you to build me up.
Yep.
You can do that sometimes. And since then, this was like maybe, the first month or two. Since then, it's been completely different. I just think people need to know that, like, it's okay to be doubtful of me and my ideas, but it's also okay to build me up here and
Yep.
there.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, it's almost like an important test when you have to stand up for your idea, especially in those beginning stages when you might not have the tangible proof of this is a
Oh,
legit
yeah.
idea that will work. And I appreciate you being honest in saying that, you had to talk to your husband and I just
Yeah,
think
I
that's
just had
great
to
that you
ask.
stood up for that, for your
Yeah, I
idea.
kind of had to ask for more approval, I
Right.
guess. And now
Right.
it's totally different. Now I
Yeah.
think that was a really powerful conversation for him to be like, "Oh, you're right."
Mm-hmm.
And for me to realize that I need him to also ground me because I am a pretty impulsive person and so creative, and I have these ideas that I can get carried away. And he does ground me, which is important. And I know that I need that. But
Yeah.
I also needed some more support from him. And so now it's just totally different.
Mm-hmm.
He is embracing both sides of being cautious, giving me great ideas, helping so much. I call him my employee. He does he does so much for the business now, but it honestly wasn't like that at the beginning. There was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of doubt. And I think maybe some fear.
Right.
I think fear is a big aspect of starting a business. Luckily, I haven't had to invest much because it doesn't really cost all that much to make Buckeyes.
Mm-hmm.
And my goals aren't like a storefront or retail. It's
Right.
a bit different, but I think for businesses who must invest up front, there's even more of that doubt and fear
Yeah, it's a risk,
than
right?
what even I've experienced.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it seems you and your husband definitely balance each other out really, really well, which is awesome to hear. And I think you also bring up a great point that I think you need at least one solid person to support you and help you and balance you out with this new business idea. And for you, that seems to be your husband. And,
Mm-hmm.
you decided to stay strong with your idea to him and talk to him about it. But that doesn't mean you need to prove all the doubters wrong, right? Because then you'd
Right.
spend too much energy talking to other people and trying to prove your idea than actually executing your idea. So that balance
Oh,
there
for
of
sure.
choosing who to defend your idea to is
Oh,
important.
absolutely. I don't really care what anyone else thinks.
Yeah, exactly.
My number one cheerleader is my husband and then my
Yep.
parents. And so, like I said, my dad's an entrepreneur with multiple ideas throughout his life and patents and such. So, when he heard of my idea, he's immediately like, "Oh, yeah, that's great." There's
Yeah,
no doubt at all, which is awesome. But I also needed that person to ground me.
right. No, I love that. Yeah, completely relate to that. So you mentioned, your goals for Bucks for Pups might not be a storefront. I'm interested in knowing what are your goals for the business and also your goals for yourself, right? We were talking a bit before this podcast that it could be a hobby, it could be a full-blown business. Where's your mind at for the future of Bucks for Pups and your future as well?
Well, thanks for asking that question because it's constantly on my mind. I would like to get rid of the retail out of my home. That's my number one goal is to move my retail elsewhere. And so where is really like what I'm working on right now. So I would love to have vendors that are groomers, doggy daycares, vets. I would love to have like little tiny refrigerators with my Buckeyes stocked in their lobbies. And then when people come in to get their dogs, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to grab some Buckeyes here." And not all the proceeds, but 20% of the proceeds go to benefit dogs. And one of the organizations on the list, I actually rescued my dog from. So there's a lot of buy in there. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? There's already dog focused organizations out in the community, and I just need to partner with them to help benefit dogs. So if I can get them to sell my product or hold my product, I should say, then it's a win win for everyone. The obstacle I'm running into right now with COVID is that all lobbies are closed. And so that could be a blessing in disguise because it's giving me some time to think this through, work with attorneys, work with, refrigerator companies, whatever the case, to get this ready to go for when lobbies open back up. This is an opportunity for organizations to hold my product and therefore help dogs. That's the whole mission, right? Is to help dogs. And so I think that dog-centered organizations would be open to that. So that's my goal.
I always love ideas and small businesses that allow you to eventually, partner with other businesses. So in your case, partnering with dog focused businesses like you're explaining. It's just such a nice way to expand your business and your exposure, and you're helping another business, and they're getting value out of it, right? They're not just putting a refrigerator in their lobby and not getting any value from it. I just think it's a great way to grow a business.
Yeah, thank you. I hope it works out. My goal is for now just to get one fridge somewhere,
Right.
right? If I get one fridge in a doggy daycare and work on that, then I grow from there.
Right.
And then ideally, in the future, I would like every single Franklin County dog rescue and shelter on our list,
Mhm.
and then move on to another county, and then another county, and then another.
I love that goal. Love it. And for you yourself, do you have any plans of taking this full time for you, or right now this is a side business, side project?
So right now it's a side project.
Hmm.
Would I love for it to be full time? Yes.
Okay.
That's very complicated. I do have a ton of student loans, and financially, it's not the answer right now.
Hmm.
And I do enjoy my career as a school counselor. Has education itself changed, and therefore my heart's changed? Yes. But right now, I'm devoted to my career. This is a side project. Yes.
Right. Yep. And I appreciate that mindset as well. You're not saying, no, never, I could never take this full time. It's more so, I have a solid career that I enjoy, and who knows what's in my future. I'm just going to keep pursuing this business and see where it goes. I think that's the perfect mindset to have.
Exactly. Thank you. Because it can be a bit challenging to battle that
Mhm.
thought process. It's a challenge, but I do see something full time in the future,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Right, right. Yeah, who knows? No, I love that. And along that same thread, I'm interested in knowing, with your experience with launching this business and running it, also having your full-time career and other passions and just life in general, what are your best practices for balancing all of that and not spending 24/7 on bucks for pups and still having a life and a career? Just any best practices that you've learned right throughout this experience?
Well, I think that's going to be like a lifelong learning process,
Hmm.
how to handle all of this and balance it. But I had to learn that in the first year of my career as a school counselor as well. And I just think it continues you just have to be mindful of your relationships, right? So I try not to be on my phone so much, right? At night, like when I'm watching TV with my husband, or if we're having dinner, or I just try to be extremely mindful of being present. Because when you're starting a business, I've learned my mind is just kind of racing all the times with different ideas. And it's easy to lose track of being present and being mindful of your current life, right? You
Hmm.
have all these like hypothetical ideas, but that's not reality. Reality is, oh, I'm on the couch watching TV with my husband. I need to be present.
Right.
I can think about this tomorrow, right? I've been thinking about it
Yep.
all day. I can put my phone down. So I just think that's going to be a lifelong lesson to learn and to balance.
Hmm.
But I don't really have the answer. I just try to be mindful and
Yeah.
balance things the best I can.
No, I think that's the perfect answer, and I appreciate your perspective that it's just a lifelong balancing act, right? It's, you can have certain best practices you do, maybe taking notes and staying organized and using lists, I don't know, things like that, but overall, the overall balance is just taking it day by day, and like you're saying, being mindful, being present in the moment, and understanding your future but not getting lost in the future. I think that's a great point and a great perspective you bring up.
Yeah, that is a good point to not get lost in the future. I met with a friend recently to just go over some ideas, some business ideas, and he was immediately drawn to like big picture, right? He was
Hmm.
thinking like franchising across the US, taking Buckeyes everywhere to all dogs, right?
Right.
And I'm like, "Whoa. Whoa. Right now, I can make 25 dozen Buckeyes in 6 hours. And I do that once or twice a week. And that's great. My first step of growth would be doing another 6 hours of 25 dozen, right? On my own. Like, and he's talking about like distribution centers and manufacturing and all this stuff. And it's, of course, my mind thought about that for 5 days after that, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this is a possibility. But that's not reality right now. Right now, I'm trying to sell Buckeyes from my front porch.
Yep.
and keeping the mission in mind, like dogs. Like I just want to help dogs.
Yep.
Like having these vendors, the idea of people holding my product, how do I encourage them to do so while benefiting dogs and perhaps not themselves? If that makes sense. Like dogs are the number one point of this business, and how to keep that mission in line and keep that in place.
Yeah, completely agree with all that. I think keeping the mission at the forefront of your mind, of your business, is just so important, because that's your ultimate driver. And if you lose that, now it just becomes about like all the logistics of a business and money and the franchising and all the vendors and all this, right? Well, that's all still important and is going to happen. It's just mission is number one. And if you stick true to that, I think you'll see great success. And I think it's also, you mentioned your friend was thinking so big picture. I think it's important to have those ideas and know that maybe one day it's possible. Like, it's a nice thought, but like we're saying, you don't need to spend hours planning that out, because that is so far in the future, right? And it's a nice, yes, one day that could be our goal, but for now, how do I just get all the shelters in Franklin County and then move on to the next county, right? Like, that's a very good future goal, right?
And it almost I felt a little defeated because I wasn't provided with any insight on like my current plan, right? He was all big picture, which is again, like you said, great. But when I left, I was like, okay, so I left with no insight. Or ideas on how to build my current tiny business.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could see also how one might feel defeated after a conversation like that, because I could see the mindset easily going to, well, crap, like, I'm not there yet. I'm just making, these out of my house. Like, how the heck am I going to get there? And then you could easily go down that rabbit hole of negativity, right? Which is not where you need to be. So yeah, I just completely agree. It's a nice thought, the big picture, but stay in the present, like you were saying.
Yes. It is so important to stay in the present. It's been interesting to run this business with no business background, because I really don't know how to make things happen, right? I have these ideas and I have no one to tell me how to make these ideas happen. And so that's been an interesting learning experience, is to seek help, because I'm like, hey, I have these ideas. How do I make it work?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So my last big question here for you, Alicia, is, in this moment, what is your proudest accomplishment? Now, this can be totally related to your business or not at all. It can be from 10 years ago or from yesterday. Just in this moment, what is your proudest accomplishment?
Can you hold on a second, Alexa? Okay, thanks.
Oh, it's yeah, no problem.
It's okay. Thank you. Sorry, I'm on a podcast. Thank you for following and shopping with me. Yay, thank you. Okay, see you, girl. Okay, I'm really sorry about that. You can edit that out,
good.
Right?
Yes, I can. Did you just have a live pickup on your porch?
Yes.
Nice. That's awesome.
I did. Where you don't have to edit it out.
Yeah, no, I will. That's so cool to hear. I love that.
That's so cool. I'm okay with you not editing it.
Cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
Yes, of course. No worries at all. So, in this moment, what is your proudest accomplishment? Now, this can be related to your business or not at all. And it can be from 10 years ago or just from yesterday. Just in this moment, what comes to mind when I ask for your proudest accomplishment?
I think my proudest accomplishment is when, and I might start to tear up a bit, But when I decided to make this in remembrance of my brother, yep, that's my proudest accomplishment. And I've, in life, I've gotten my master's degree and I've gotten married and bought a house and all those like quintessential like life chapters. But when I chose to make it in honor of him, and his name was Jeremy, he was 38 years old and loved his dogs like more than himself in many ways. And when I had this idea and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it in honor of him, that's my proudest accomplishment in my whole life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and your journey on launching this such meaningful business. And I think it's those most personal accomplishments that really hit home, right? And really mean the most to us. And you can carry this with you forever and carry on his memory and just keep him so close to you. I think it's just a wonderful way to honor your brother. And again, thank you for sharing that. And
of course, thank you. Sorry.
No, you're totally fine. I really appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability and just sharing your how much this means to you. I think it's just so clear, right, throughout our conversation how much this means to you, and also this just awesome mindset you have around it, like just knowing how this ties back to your brother and also helping dogs and animals. Like it's so obvious you're not getting lost in the stress of running a business. Of course, I'm sure there are very stressful moments,
sure.
But your mindset around it is just so positive and happy, and it's just so clear. I love it. It's just so
Thank you. I strive for my heart to come through in my mission for sure. And so if the listeners were to ever visit my website and such, they'll see 6 dogs on the homepage that I had a graphic designer sketch for me. And those are my family dogs. So 2 are my late brother's dogs. 1 is my younger brother's dog, 2 are my dogs, and then 1 is my parents' dog. Awesome. And so my family dogs will always be the face of my business. Even though, dogs in the future, they come and go. Unfortunately, we outlive our pets. But they were our family dogs when I started this. So it'll be really important for me to keep them as my business dogs, basically, on all my graphics and all the postcards I make and things like that, are these 6 little dogs, ladies and gents, that will always be the face of Bucks for Pups.
The original clan. I love it.
Yeah, quite the motley crew, actually.
Awesome. So as we wrap up here, you mentioned your website. First, what is that website, and where else can people find you and Bucks for Pups? Shout out any social medias.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram and at Facebook at Bucks for Pups Confections, and online at bucksforpupsconfections.com. You can order online. You can always shoot me an email about shipping. I can't remember. I might have taken shipping off as an option, but if listeners are across state lines or counties, I am always willing to ship, in which we talked about this earlier. So just shoot me an email and we can make it happen.
Perfect. Love to hear it. Well, I hope everyone checks out Alicia and Bucks for Pups. And again, Alicia, thank you so much for chatting with me today and sharing your journey and your perspectives and advice. It was lovely speaking with you.
Of course. You too, Alexa. Thank you so much for the invitation. I've really enjoyed following you on social media, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to voice my perspective on running this new little business. I don't have a lot of insight, but perhaps this connected with one of the listeners today. So thank you so much for the invitation.
For sure, of course. And I hope everyone checks out Bucks for Pups.
Thank you.